Hi everyone, I'm Yakov Horowitz, and I'm absolutely delighted to walk you through our newest Gemara book. It's on Eliu Mitziyus, which is part of Baba Metzia. At the beginning, we produced already an introduction to Eliu Mitziyus and the first small sugya, the topic. But the big deal here is the Yiush She'lo Midaas. I'm just going to walk you through. A lot of people have been asking me, like, what's the big fuss about? So I'm going to walk you through it. Yiush She'lo Midaas means as follows. It's talking about lost objects. Now, the rule is that with a lost object, let's say you lose something and I find it. So the one who lost it, the finder can't keep it until you gave up hope of getting it back. There are a lot of details, but let's keep it simple. Okay, as soon as you give up hope, it becomes hefker, it becomes ownerless, and then I'm allowed to keep it. But I cannot take it until such an event happens that you actually give up hope. So the Gemara questions what happens if, let's say you lost something in a very crowded area and you really you would not have any hope of getting it back. However, you didn't know that it was lost. You had a hole in your pocket, you dropped something out of your bag, and I picked it up before you found out you lost it. So you didn't, Yiush means to give up hope. Miyayish is the verb. So it's Yiush She'lo Midaas. It means the question is, if you would have known, you would have given up hope, but you didn't know. So can you have Yiush She'lo Midaas? Das is knowledge. And this is a very complex, thoroughly enjoyable, but very complex topic that relies a lot on situations. And the reason this took us 2 years, well over a year more than any of our other books, and the reason it was such because we invested so much time in graphics and making everything so easy for the children. I'm just going to walk you through some of it so you can get an idea. I'll do a Zoom later where I can do better justice to the subject. But here's the big idea. The big idea is this is the first scenario, and this first case here, what we produced dozens of these. These are timelines. So I don't know if you can see it well enough. Here it says 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So the fellow who lost the object dropped the item here at 1 o'clock. A different fellow picks it up at 2 o'clock. The guy doesn't realize until he's going home at 4 o'clock that it was lost. Now, you see, this is his bag. This falls out of it. Now, if he would have known, he would have been Niyayish. And so this timeline, just think of going through this topic without seeing it visually, and look at the difference it makes to actually see it. And one of the features of our Gemara system is that each logical component has a different color and a different icon. So this is a statement. It's called a memra. This is what the Gemara actually says. Itmar. We learned Yiush She'lo Midaas. What happens if in a situation like this, Abaye says it's not Yiush, Rava says it is. And the Gemara says that, and then the Gemara goes on some details. These are homework sheets that we have. Here's the next lesson. And it says if the Gemara questions whether or not there was a siman, an identifiable object. Now, this here has the exact same scenario. The only difference is that here it's talking about his tefillin. So the fellow loses his tefillin, which does have his name on it, 5 o'clock. 5:30, he gets off the bus, and he doesn't realize till the next morning that he lost it. The fellow picked it up at 5:30. So here we have a question about how the Gemara says, in a case like this, it's not Yiush, because the fellow expects to get it back. His name is on the tefillin. Then we go back to the original case. And talk about a different situation. And so the basic idea is that every time there's a new situation and a new man d'amar, a new person brings up a different argument and a proof to one of these things, you just have it so clearly in front of you in a way that's very manageable. Now, these are either homework questions or work questions. And one of the things that I noticed very early on as a Gemara Rebbe was that there are very different skills in knowing Gemara. There's the decoding, the translation of the words, it's following the logic, it's knowing what the discussion is all about. And very early on, I decided to give my students, instead of giving them one test, I graded them separately on different components of it. And so it was diagnostic. So these work examples, these are just a vocabulary review. We have vocabulary words with translation of all the words in the back, and they're usually there in order of appearance. So the translation words are each lesson has a few translation words here, and like I said, the translation is in the back. And this is called putting it together. So you explain the meaning of Yiush She'lo Midaas. We just discussed this. Where do Abai and Rava agree? Here's the Gemara itself. What type of step is this? We saw it before. It was a statement. And this is matching. And you'll see later that the logical flow of the Gemara is also mapped out in a very sequential way. And the Gemara wants to bring a proof. I'm not going to obviously go through the whole Gemara, but here the Gemara brings a proof. We said it in the Mishnah that if someone finds produce, a grain here that's scattered on the ground, we learned this earlier, that the finder is allowed to keep it. So the Gemara says, isn't this a proof that Yiush She'lo Midaas is considered Yish? And we said it's talking about Machnash de Beidari, which is a threshing floor, meaning that he didn't drop it in the street, but rather it was in a place where the grain was to be expected. Now, this is called a proof now. So we try to bring a proof. What's the object of the proof? What's the support? And how do we refute that support? So again, I'm just trying to give you a basic idea of how we teach the Gemara in a logical, sequential way, that the children have time to review. You know, the basic law in education is you don't teach two things at the same time. So if I'm explaining to you, let's say, the theory of whatever, Pythagorean theorem, if I teach you something related to a mathematical concept, and I apply it to practical knowledge, and I'm teaching you astronomy, so I say, you see these stars are at right angles to each other, and I never explain to you what right angles are, you don't teach two things at the same time because you get overwhelmed. So each thing is taught separately. Here's the statement, and here's a question on that statement, and then we go through the various steps. And throughout the Gemara, throughout this Yiush She'lo Midaas, it's a subject that the children take weeks to learn, and you really, in Yiddish we call it halt cup. These are the logical steps of the Gemara, and we're only about a third of the way through. We have 10 logical steps. Helping the children follow this logical thread is enormously important. Here we talk about somebody losing something in a public area, whether it's money. Here it talks about whether people are allowed to collect produce from a different field. And again, I certainly won't be able to go through all of it, but I just wanted to give you a flavor for the incredible work that Rabbi Spivak and our art team had done in putting together these scenarios. You may remember this one. This talks about if a river takes wood away, planks of wood, can somebody keep it? And we're talking about different situations. Anyway, look, I'm biased, but it's a work of art. It's really a masterpiece. And I really think this is going to be a game changer in terms of how children learn to process and understand Gemara. About 70% of people are visual learners. We actually did a lot of research into this ourselves, seeing if any of these logic tools actually help kids learn, and it's really off the charts. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this quick tour. I'm going to do something on Zoom in the next day or two, which will be more thoughtful and more sequential. Be well, everyone. Hope you enjoyed.